Hello, hello. I wanted to put together a pretty quick video of just intentions for this channel for the year, which also double as intentions for me for the year. But just to give a little bit of a heads up to let anyone who's interested know what they can kind of expect out of just what I'm going to be doing here for the year of 2025, as well as this being a way for me to hold myself accountable to making sure I'm on top of certain things. So there's a pretty long list, and I don't think I'm going to do this in this video or potentially any long list of things that I would like to do and like to get to and like to use this space for. But I have a lot of fun thinking about it. However, I'm going to stick with the things that I know are coming, or at the very least, are going to be a high focus if I can make them happen. So, the first standard thing is for any of you who watch the Monday Musings videos, no change. So that is fully intended to happen every Monday. So 52 of those expected this year. No adjustment in that. Um, be on the lookout for those every Monday. So that's going to stay the same. The article reviews that I started doing late last year, those are going to maintain as well. I really enjoy that, and it forced me to do some reading and reflection, and people tend to enjoy those relatively well. So I expect more videos with me just kind of commentating on just articles that are coming out, maybe even some past ones, probably a handful of past ones. I'll try to stay up with modern ones. Not necessarily news articles so much as updates in the world of mental health and psychology. So that's the second thing to be on the lookout for. I will continue. I've done, I think, one of these so far, but I plan to continue doing more videos on just the channel and analytics. I'm a huge analytics person and I love numbers, and I like seeing those analyses. So I'll put out some of those, and I think it's especially fun to do on a small channel. So none of those are ever to make myself feel any certain way. They're just to show what it looks like with what I'm doing. So I have these many videos. This is what views are looking like. This is what subscribers are looking like. This is what um, I don't have any plans for this to be monetized this year, but if that were to happen, what that looks like, and just going into that stuff, I like reflecting on it, and I know other people also like that. So, for those of you who are that category of people, you can watch those videos as I put more of them out. The other thing is I slowed down my videos on business, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I don't think there's one seemingly a high interest in it on this channel, and two, wanting to make sure that my core message is consistent. If I'm a mental health channel, how many people are actually interested in business? But also, it's a mental health channel. This is a professional channel in a lot of ways, but it's also very personal. So I have an expertise, but I also talk about things that I want to talk about. So I'm not going to branch too far out. However, I do think that business is related to mental health. There's anytime that there's money involved, there's that overlap. And I have a separate, much smaller consulting business that I do. So it makes sense for these to overlap. So I do expect more of those to come out. I was doing them weekly for a while, paused. I don't anticipate bringing them back to weekly, but I do anticipate a couple more coming out throughout the year. The exact number I could not give you, but being on the lookout for probably a few of those this year is probably a fair assessment of where I'm going. Um, okay, the one that I am most excited about is the name of this channel is The Ryan Miller Show, which I named for fun. And the actual idea behind that was that would be more of my interactions with other people. So uh, you'd call it a podcast, I guess. Wanting to do more of that. And I don't really have the team or the tech for that. So I have a software that I plan to use to start doing some interviews with people and just talk to people that I'm really interested in. This is not going to be exclusively therapists or mental health topics, but I probably will start out with those and then branch out. But for me, it's just to give space for myself to talk with people that I'm interested in. Most of them are going to be people I know because that's the best way to get interviews. And I like the people I know overall. So that's going to be a really easy stepping stone. So, putting out the first few episodes of that, I hope to have the first 5 done by June ish. So, putting that timeline out there, that is my goal, assuming the software and the process goes not even as smooth as I hope, but just smooth enough that there's no big setbacks. That's what I'm really excited about, is to start getting into a routine of doing the actual show. And over time, maybe improving camera quality, lighting, and audio. Audio's gotten better with this, but making things better. So that's a big one that I'm excited for. Okay. Um, I like to read and I want to be reading more. And so the bulk of this is I'm actually going to show you all every book that I currently have in my possession that I plan to get through this year. And if I'm so bold, this will be all in the first 6 months of the year. So this is kind of nerve wracking for me to put out there. I'm not going to stress myself out about it, but it's a backlog of stuff that I want to get through and share with you all and do the book reviews and book discussion slash analyses. So I'm going to present these, and they're not in strict order, but I tried to put them in a rough order of which ones you'll expect first. So the first few I show will likely be in the next month or two that you'll start seeing them, and then the last ones will happen closer to June or July. So, oh, and also bear in mind a couple of the criteria to make this list. One is that it is mental health or psychology or therapy related. If it is, it's on this list. The second piece is I had decided a couple months ago that I would read through every book that the psychologist Jordan Peterson recommended. I thought about it for a couple years and then finally decided I'm just going to read all of them. And so you're going to see maybe a couple on here that don't seem like they make sense to this field, but it is because I'm taking recommendations from a psychologist for supposed books that will change you. So they may or may not have a mental health twist to them. One that I'm looking at right here is a fiction book, and I don't actually know too much about it. So you're going to see maybe some in there that are interesting. And then also books on business. Any business book I read, I'm going to share here because I do still feel like that is part of this channel because it is part of me and what matters to me. So before I jump into that list, one of my other goals for reading is I've been considering for a while doing some videos on here on the book of Proverbs as a mental health tool. That book is, I would argue, one of the best books on just being the person you're supposed to be. I try to read parts of that book every single day. So my plan there is to do videos just over that, not necessarily over each chapter. It's definitely not going to be just one video if I choose to do it. It'll be a multitude, and I'll go for a set amount of length probably, or just till I happen to end one or two chapters. But that one is one I'm actually pretty excited about and really wanting to get to. So, first book to look forward to is The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. This book, if you know anything about it, is actually one that, if you read it properly, takes a minimum of 300 days to read. It is a short book, definitely below 200. What is it even? It's 111 pages. It's barely even 100 pages. But the first close to 50 pages are actually a really well written short story. But from there are, as the fictional characters go, there are 10 scrolls that they read to become the greatest salesman in the world. This book is about personhood and philosophy. It does teach about doing business, but in some sense, I would argue it's almost secondary. So each scroll or chapter on being a salesman, there are 10 of them, and it is focused on, I'm not going to be this detailed on every book. I'm just explaining why this one takes 300 days. You're told to read each chapter once in the morning, once after lunch, and then right before bed out loud to yourself for 30 days. And then once you've done that, the idea is that it's ingrained in you, and then you move on to the next chapter, the next scroll, and do that for 30 days. So you're reading each chapter 90 times before you move on. So that one, I'll probably do it in bursts. I'm actually done with the first set of scrolls tomorrow at the time of recording, so Monday. By the time this is out, I'll be on to the second one. And I'll probably do a video quick review of each scroll as I get through it, and then the whole book at the end of that 10-month period, which will probably be out in September or October. So that's that book. The next one that I'm likely going to get through, and then after this one, these all are pretty much guaranteed, is Atomic Habits. So, very popular book. I have read it before. I plan to go through it again, and I'm actually planning to do it with a family member and work on a couple of habits that I want to refine. So, I'll likely review that again with different eyes this time around. The next one, C.S. Lewis's The Reading Life. So, this is not necessarily a book that C.S. Lewis wrote, it is an amalgam of quotes from him. So, this is collected from works that he has put out, but every topic in here is about reading. So far, I'm about halfway through this one, and I would definitely recommend this to anyone who enjoys reading, and especially people who enjoy reading very thought provoking things and fantasy. He was big on fantastical fiction and deep, profound nonfiction. So he does a very good job of supporting both genres. So that one's coming. The next one, How to Die by Seneca. Again, this is another one that is not a work written just by Seneca. Well, I should say it is his works, but it is pieced together from letters and other pieces that he wrote. So this is a collection of his thoughts on how to die, which by extension, what he's saying is how to have a good life, more or less. The next one, if you're following the channel, you know I've already started this, is We Who Wrestle with God. Not only have I started it, but some of you watching have been frustrated at my slow pace getting through it. It's about 500 pages, and yes, I'm moving very slow. That's my progress, but I'll be picking up the pace a lot for this. So the first video on this is already out. I'm doing it chapter by chapter, and then we'll do a final video once I finish that one. Next one, Life Together by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. So this one is technically focused on Christian community, but any book, excuse me, if you know what I've talked about when it comes to mental health, community is high, high, high up there for a determining factor if you have good mental health or not, is relationship quality and communities. And everyone watching this, when I say church communities, you will have some opinion of that. If it's a good opinion, great. If it's bad, that often, from my experience talking with people, has come from hurt within church communities. So most people don't just inherently hate on a community. They've had bad experiences or were taught something about it. And sometimes the bad experiences are valid reasons to not like it. So I'm a big fan of anything that talks about how to be in better community with people. So this is a book that I've been wanting to read for a while. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, if you don't know anything about him, I would heavily encourage you to look him up. He's a very interesting and profound man and was very oppositional towards the Nazi party during World War II, and it eventually cost him his life for speaking up against it. Okay, the next two, a little bit of a combo pack here. The War of Art and Turning Pro. I've talked about this one on the show before. I have not talked about this one. So, The War of Art is a book that I've read multiple times. I'm currently reading through it again. That bookmark does not show up on here. There you go. And we'll talk about it in detail on here for the first time. But this is a book that if you are a creative person in any way whatsoever, I think you owe it to yourself to read this book. It's just about professionalism and from a artistic standpoint. So not like you're making $1 million a year, but what it means to be a professional in how you carry yourself with the work that you're doing. And it also talks about resistance being the number one thing that gets in the way of that, and that's the antagonist of the nonfiction story. And Turning Pro is just about the art of stepping into that fullness of you and being professional in the way that you carry yourself with your creative works. Sorry for the clearing my throat. Okay, everything these I'm all actively reading. Everything from now on is going to be new reads. So Ryan Holiday's Discipline is Destiny. So this is book 3, I think. He's doing a 4-part series on the Stoic virtues, and they're very good. He wrote The Obstacle is the Way, which I'll probably end up rereading at some point and talking about on here. But he's been working through this series of Stoic philosophy books and how they're done in practice. So that one I'm heavily, heavily looking forward to just reading through. Um, Discipline is Destiny. So looking up the 4 Stoic virtues could be a fun use of your time. Okay, counseling and psychotherapy. Yes, it does say Christian perspective. I got this book on a whim, obviously at Half Price Books, you can tell. So I'm just very interested in this. I'm astounded at this as well. The last, I think, 100 pages, and I love books that do this. If you're a friend of mine, you know that sometimes the thing that I dislike the most about books I love is when they don't cite sources. So I've talked about articles on here before and said, oh, they're saying stuff, but they're not citing their sources. They're not actually pointing out the research that they did. They're just saying research and not citing it. I don't like that. I don't mind it as much in video formats like this, but when you're writing papers and not citing where you found information, especially when it's detailed work, off the cuff articles, whatever. But I really like when things are cited. And this book has like the last 100 pages or so, I think is what it was. Last like 75 pages are all citations, and I absolutely love that. That was one of the things that stood out to me. So, Christian Perspective on Counseling and Psychotherapy by Xiang Yang Tan. So, I'm looking forward to reading that one and just seeing how it goes. The Coaching Habit. Say less, ask more, and change the way you lead forever. A family member recommended this to me, and I trust their recommendations on a topic like this. So, this is going to be a quick read on coaching specifically. You could say that it's like an overlap between business and therapy, but that's, yeah, topic of coaching. So I'm excited for that. Okay. The first full fiction book I believe on this list is Cancer Ward by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. So if you know anything about him, he wrote The Gulag Archipelago, which is probably on a must-read list for everyone, and I have not finished it. I finally got the full unabridged version, which is what I really wanted. I had started with the abridged and then felt wrong reading that one, even though he endorses it. So this is a fiction book, and this is on Peterson's list of books to read. So I'm going to be starting this one here in a couple weeks, and I'm pretty stoked for it. Next up is Carl Jung's. I think it's pronounced Aeon, but I don't know. I hope to figure that out. Researches into the phenomenology of the self. So reading a little bit more Carl Jung has been on my to-do list for a little bit of time now. Which, look at that, more Carl Jung. So this is going to be another one on here. Psychology and Religion, West and East. There's not much more to say about this. I love the psychology of religion. I love the Jungian psychoanalytic side of things and symbolism. So we're going to be pressing into that and seeing what we find. The next is, we'll say it's a bit more of a two-parter. Strengths-based leadership, which is a extrapolation from StrengthsFinder. And if you've never done StrengthsFinder, one of the things that I like about it is one of the few, and I'm probably more opinionated than I should be. It's one of the few personality tests that's actually good. This and the Big Five personality trait, the Ocean characteristics, are really, in my opinion, the only two that you should focus on. I wouldn't put much time into Enneagram, Myers Briggs, any of that stuff. I'm not going to say it's completely worthless and pointless, but there's very little evidence suggesting that it's useful. And when you take them over time, answers change. So this is one of the few that is backed by tons of research in actually being effective. And then this book is a follow up on that that teaches how to lead based on the strengths that are found in this. So as we get around to this, I'll talk more about StrengthsFinder as well as my personal results I got from it and some thoughts on integrating those into day-to-day life. So I'll probably do those really back to back. Okay, and this book was another on a whim. The Richest Man Who Ever Lived. King Solomon's Secret to Success, Wealth, and Happiness. King Solomon is a biblical character, a historical character, and wrote much of the Book of Psalms. And so this book just looked interesting to me. It was super, super cheap, and I thought I would buy it and just see what it says. So that's more of a whim. I'd never heard of it before. I just saw it, and I went with it. Okay. Next, and we are almost done. Predictable revenue. Turn your business into a sales machine with the $100 million best practices of Salesforce.com. Doesn't necessarily sound like a fun read, and I'm not out here trying to turn my therapy practice into a $100 million business. However, I think there are principles that transcend business. So I also told myself there are 10 books that Alex Hormozy, the currently very popular social media business guy, at the moment, I trust a lot of the work that he does. And so I plan to read this, which is a book that he recommends. I also realized I didn't bring them over here. He's written 2 books, and I will grab one of them on the screen and come back because I do plan to get through these this year. His $100 million leads book. I think he's got a third one coming out probably this year, so I'll probably get around to that. It'll be a surprise read. $100 million offers is his first book, which I started and I let it get too convoluted for myself, so I will probably start it over and do that with this one, probably uh, potentially back to back, unless it is something I need to have more in practice. But I think he's a really wise dude, and I plan to read his two books, third book probably this year if it comes out, plus every book that he recommended, which is about 10 specific books. So, next book, another Peterson recommendation, Mephistopheles, The Devil in the Modern World. So, this author has written, I believe, 4 books on the history of the devil. This is the fourth and final book in that series. I have not read the first 3, so I'll tell you if that matters. But just really excited for this take on the history of the devil in modern society. John Wooden on leadership, another recommendation from Alex Hormozy. So just a leadership book that I'm excited about. And I think everyone really owes it to themselves to study what makes good leaders good at what they do and learn how to replicate that. We don't all have to be managers or directors of things, but just leading in a space that you have domain over, which is any work that you do, anything that you're given. It's helpful to know how to steward and lead that well. Okay, another recommendation, The Rise of Statistical Thinking 1820 to 1900. So it's about as direct as it sounds. We're going to be looking at statistical thinking. So if you're looking at this stuff, there's probably some in here that you're like, that sounds interesting, and others that you don't find interesting. And that's the beauty of what I'm doing here. It's not going to be for everyone all the time. The next one, quite the image, I know. Our Culture, What's Left of It, The Mandarins, and The Masses. This is another recommended read, and I frankly don't know too much about it. I do think it's a collection of essays, and I'm just very interested to see what this really dives into around culture. And the final book is How to Be Strong, Healthy, and Happy by Bob Hoffman. So this one does look kind of funny at times. Got a bunch of pictures of him all jacked and other people jacked. And it's like 40 chapters of just how to live a happy, healthy life. So, or closer to 30 chapters rather. So I get interested in things that are autobiographical and biographical. So when people just talk about their lives and their experiences and how they've moved through things, I think it's super, super valuable. So this person's talking about that, and I'm excited for it. So that is the very long video of what to expect for this year. I guess that was the bulk of that was talking about books. So um, if you have any thoughts as you're watching, anything that you want to see from the channel this year, any questions you have, throw them in the comments, reach out. I'm always up for it. And yeah, I'll look forward to walking this journey with all of you, and we'll make sure to get through all of this stuff this year. See ya.